Hello, everyone, and welcome again. This is Perspectives, the home edition. And we may be changing that to make it in studio again, probably coming up in the new season, but we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Our first guest today is Josh Cantrell. Josh, welcome, my friend.
Sam, thank you for having me today.
Josh is with in fact, he's the Chief Operating Officer of the Grand Lake Mental Health Center. Josh, for the sake of folk who might not know, what exactly is the health center all about?
Well, Sam, we're a certified community behavioral health center, and we operate in the 12 northeasternmost and north centralmost counties in Oklahoma. So that's really from Ottawa County over to Kay County and down to Payne County. We serve approximately 25,000 people a year. We serve children, we serve adults, and we serve families. We provide a wide range of services, and we have 22 clinics in those areas.
Oh, my goodness. I'd be curious to know, I mean, you didn't get to where you are overnight. When did it all start?
You know, we've been in operation since the 70s. We've had some very strong leadership over the years. Right now, our Chief Operating Officer, Larry Smith, has kind of taken us into a mode of innovation and national leadership when it comes to some of the initiatives that I'll be talking to you about today.
Well, let's talk about some of the things that you offer. What services do you offer?
Well, we're really interested in providing holistic treatment. So we're trying to treat whatever someone needs at this time. So if someone comes to us for issues related to mental health, of course, we're going to work on those. But we also do a lot of services related to physical health issues. We do a lot of services related to needs as far as housing, food, things of those nature. We do lots of medication management services. But one of the most innovative things that we're doing right now revolves around increasing the access to the people we serve. So we've been working. Go ahead, Sam.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to tell you that, so we have partnered with a firm that does a software product called MyCare that we put on iPads, and we've distributed these to thousands of people in Oklahoma so they can receive 24-hour face-to-face instant access to mental health and substance use treatment services, because we know that mental health needs don't stop at 5 o'clock on Friday and don't resume again at 8 o'clock on Monday.
Boy, that's for sure. We're going to get to that iPad program in just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
I want to talk with you just briefly about mental health, because it is such a slippery slope for folk. There are people out there who desperately need help, and it's so hard in many cases to diagnose their problems, and then their problems can be caused by something as insignificant as diet.
Yes, sir. That's a very good point. So that's why when we're looking at some of the things that people are experiencing, we're really heavy on assessment and even labs, just kind of what you're mentioning right now. There's multiple things that can cause someone's mental health to deteriorate, including something like infection in the body. So we're very interested in the prevalence of UTIs and things of that nature. But when we're looking at what causes these issues, for me, recognizing them is any types of behavior shifts that you see may be someone beginning to experience a mental illness. So the questions that I would ask when I'm looking at someone is this person sleeping more than they used to sleep? Are there behaviors associated with substance use changing, even alcohol use increasing? Are they isolating themselves? And questions like, is their appetite changing from what it used to be? So any changes in normal behavior could possibly be the onset of some sort of mental health issue.
Oklahoma, and I want to preface what I'm about to say, Oklahoma is not a rogue state, if you will. It's just that we hold dearly the values that we came into this world and were raised with in this state. Native Oklahomans in particular, it's hard to get them to look in a mirror, if you will. How do you do that?
So I really like the way that you worded that. I'm going to tell you that some of the stigmas and misconceptions associated with mental illness are the barriers for people receiving treatment. So we know that around 22% of Oklahomans experience a severe mental illness, but much less of those people are looking for treatment. We also know that those experiencing a serious mental illness, their lifespan is around 20 years less than the average population. The reason for this lack of accessing services is because people look at it as possibly that they're weaker than other people, maybe that they're less intelligent than other people. People make statements like they should just pull themselves up by the bootstraps and that they need to snap out of it. The reasons these misconceptions are so far off is because mental illness is a brain disorder. It is a physical disorder. So making statements like that is not too different than if we were to look at someone with diabetes and tell them, hey, snap out of it. You need to get that blood sugar down. There's not a whole lot of difference there.
And too, there are those out there who would just take one look at, maybe Troy likes to put dresses on fence posts, and there are guys that are going to look at that and say, well, the dude just whacked out, without addressing the issue. When their friend or their family member might need help, and somebody needs to explain to that person, you don't put dresses on fence posts.
Yeah, and I think that one of the issues that we experience, Sam, is that we, as family members, as loved ones, as acquaintances of someone that may be beginning to display those types of behaviors or experience mental illness, we can very likely be in denial also. Because remember, there's a stigma associated with having a family member that has a mental illness. So if we can get past those misconceptions and stigmas and know that those are symptoms of a deeper issue that maybe that person doesn't have control of, the first step would be us accepting that maybe someone that we care about is experiencing a mental illness. And then the second step is being willing to have those tough conversations, because we're only as sick as our secrets. And if we're willing to first recognize that it may be a mental illness, accept that, and then have those tough conversations, even if it's not a mental illness, we'll at least get closer to the truth and maybe be able to help them with something else that they're experiencing.
Josh, I want to throw you a real softball question here, and I realize that this is one of those things that people are going to say, now, wait a minute, why would he ask a question like that? Well, we'll explain as we go along. What are some of the signs, and I mean just generalizations here, what are some of the signs that folks out there need help?
It can be tricky, and again, I kind of mentioned it a second ago, but I'm going to tell you that any variation from normal behavior is worth looking into. So the big one for me that I did not mention as well earlier is isolation. All of us have been isolating in some form or another for the last year. But as most of us are starting to come out of that into some semblance of normalcy, some people we're going to recognize are not moving back into that socialization and being around people in public or in family gatherings. And that may be because there's some mental health issues that have arisen due to the pandemic that weren't there before. And so isolation, and isolation is not just a sign, but it's a very dangerous aspect of especially depression. So isolation can be very detrimental to somebody who already has some tendencies towards depression. But again, the rule of thumb is any variance from normal behaviors that you notice, things just not quite right, things that they used to do that they quit doing, loss of interest in things that they like, excessive sleep, inability to sleep. And then you mentioned some of those more egregious behaviors that are easy to recognize, but those subtle changes are worth taking a look at.
Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. What if Aunt Mildred or Uncle Willie, coming out of this pandemic, we see behavioral problems there or things that are not the way they used to be 8, 9, 10 months ago? How do you approach a family member or a friend that you know needs help and you want to get them to seek out that help?
So, Sam, I think that the most important thing is to come at the situation with a spirit of love. That the goal is to help them with whatever it is that they're experiencing. So coming with a solution may not be the best approach, but coming with a joint focus on finding a solution may be the best thing. Asking the right questions. Communication is the key. Being willing to accept the possibility that they may be experiencing a mental illness and talking to them about why you're concerned and being honest about those issues. That's the main advice that I can give. It can never be wrong to bring up a dangerous situation.
And I'd like to point out too, there's really, and I encourage anybody who's feeling fine, if you don't believe you have problems, go see a therapist anyway. Just kind of talk to one, get a feel. I mean, there may be something going on you don't know about, but at the same time, they might just put their stamp of approval on your behavior and show you the door.
That's a really good point, and I think that any of us are susceptible. That's the key. That this is a situation that doesn't discriminate. So it doesn't see any color, it doesn't see any age, it doesn't see any class. And when those issues arise, you just have to know that there is people that can help. I know that at some point during this conversation, your people are going to put some phone numbers and a website on the screen. And so that's going to be to access Grand Lake Mental Health Center, and there is no wrong door. So it's never the wrong idea to take a look and see what's happening and have someone help you determine if what you're experiencing is normal or if it's something that we can help with.
You know, I'm going to tell you something that you're too young. You probably wouldn't know this, but back in the early days of television, there were people who, while they wanted television, would only watch it if they could put aluminum foil on their heads. Sounds funny. There was a problem there. They believed sincerely, and somehow this rumor started to go across the country, that people on television could read their thoughts. Now, that was more of an educational issue, and when the folks in television finally figured it out, through humor and various public television or educational television programs, they were able to dispel those myths. Folks did away with their aluminum foil and, sat back and discovered it was more than just a box with wires. It could serve a real purpose. Now, I know that internal medicine now is utilizing television, if you will, for assessments and recommended treatments. Is the same thing happening with psychiatry?
Yes, sir. And we have taken this to the next level when it comes to utilizing telehealth issues. So I mentioned that platform that we're utilizing called MyCare on the iPads. And so that's
good. Good. Go ahead.
So that started, so we determined a need about 5 years ago when it came to law enforcement officers coming upon someone in the field that was experiencing a potential mental health issue. What would happen is law enforcement officers were having to make really tough decisions. They were oftentimes taken to these individuals to emergency rooms in their area, and they were having to wait for hours upon hours upon hours, sometimes multiple shifts, until someone was able to make a determination of where they could take that individual for treatment. So we decided that we were going to put iPads in every single law enforcement vehicle in the counties that we serve. So remember, 12 counties in Oklahoma, that's 800 law enforcement vehicles that have iPads with instant 24/7 access to a live licensed mental health professional that can help them. They can do consultation and assessment to help them in the field right then determine what the best course of action is and save them hours upon hours. So actually we saved them hundreds of thousands of miles and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the last few years by doing that. But we also do that on an outpatient basis. So we're able to serve anybody that we serve in our population. They have access 24 hours a day to the services that they need. So that means anytime, anywhere that they need mental health care, we're able to provide those services.
Josh, we got about 2.5 minutes. Are you going to expand that program?
Oh, absolutely. So we're in the process right now of every single person that we serve having an iPad with that instant access. What that means, people talk about something called open access oftentimes, and usually that refers to people just being able to walk into an office. So what I'm going to tell you is that we have 3 24-hour units right now that are lower levels of care. So people can come to those units and volunteer to receive treatment. In the past, the only option they had was to go to an inpatient hospital, which that meant that their civil liberties were being taken away, and usually it was between 5 and 10 days that would occur, and that had lots of detrimental effects on their behavioral health. So it was actually had consequences that were not desirable. So what we do now is we make sure that we treat people in the least restrictive environment. That means that if we can treat them in one of our crisis units over a 12-hour period, that's what we do. If we can treat them from the comfort of their own home, that's what we do. And what that means is we've been able to have some really good results from this. We have decreased inpatient hospitalization in the 12 counties that we serve by 98% over the last few years. That
That's
equates
amazing.
to, it equates
That's
to
amazing that
millions
you're able
and
to do
millions
that.
and millions of dollars, and that equates
Yeah,
to better outcomes.
amazing. And I mean, I can just see the productivity levels rising, and all of this is protected
Yes,
in
sir.
the
Right.
information.
Yeah, right. It's called HIPAA compliance, and so the application that we utilize is 100% HIPAA compliant, so that no one else can access that information going over the data waves.
Josh, I want to thank you for taking time to come visit us. And at some point down the road, perhaps in the fall, let's sit down again and talk a little bit, because I know you've got expansion on the drawing board, and let's see where you are and what you're doing.
Sam, I really appreciate this opportunity. Your questions were on point, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Josh, my friend. It's good talking with you. And we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more with a little color. Stay with us.